The less you do and the more you say yes to what is truly aligned, the more happiness and joy and freedom, abundance, and prosperity you will have in every area of your life. You're listening to episode 156 on the Body and Soul Wisdom podcast with your host, jenmons.
Our work right now on the planet is to bring honoring and sanctity to the invisible just as much as the visible. The invisible results are things like feeling good, things like feeling connected, things like our health, our well-being, a feeling of joy, pleasure.
Embodiment can't be faked. Once you're in an open state where you actually can see through a clear lens, you're not clouded by fear, you're not clouded by the amygdala, you're not clouded by society's news and all the fear-based stuff, and you're just with you. Then you get to decide where you think we actually are.
It is possible to navigate pain with grace.
Energy is information. We're here to experience the full spectrum.
That worthiness is hard for you. There's nothing wrong with you. It is a muscle that we kind of have to learn how to access. You are not disempowered, and you have power in every area of your life all the time.
I believe that chronic illness is an opportunity for us to heal.
Health, it's a choice. Listening to your body if you so choose.
My prayer for the world would be that they would know the infinite love of God.
Aloha and welcome to the Body and Soul Wisdom podcast, formerly known as the Embodied Healing Cell podcast, with your host, jenmons. Join me each week for soul-inspired, conscious conversations around awakening to your soul purpose through 5-element well-being. Thank you so much for joining in. Hello, and welcome back to the Body and Soul Wisdom podcast with your host, jenmons. I am just feeling so grateful and abundant, and my heart is full to share another week with you on this podcast. I'm super grateful. So thank you so much for being here again with me this week, because without you, there really is no me. I think I would probably continue to record, but it's just so much more enjoyable when I get your text messages and your posts that you're really enjoying the show. So thank you again so much. So I'm really excited to dive into a topic that I've become really passionate about in the past couple years, and quite honestly, something I thought I would never ever talk about, which is money. And one of the things I've noticed is that money is one of the top 5 things that people don't want to talk about: food, sex, politics, religion, and money. I started my coaching career 15 years ago in fitness and nutrition, so I was already talking about food in ways that people didn't want to hear through the lens of, integrative wellness and herbal medicine and holistic, and just ways that were a little bit outside the box. So I've already been down that path. And in my 15 years of coaching, which evolved from health coaching to life coaching, I then began to step into emotional empowerment and emotional freedom through life coaching, and also mindset shifts, and then begin to dive deeper into energy and started to work a lot more with energy, just noticing how everything is energy: food, love, emotions, decisions, and money are all energy. And eventually, my integrative approach to wellness, everybody talks about mind, body, and soul. That's pretty easy. And I begin, really with the foundation of the 4 elements of health that everybody talks about: mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional. And I learned through my own experience that financial, I believe, is a 5th element to well-being. Now, I just want to say, my coach asked me, and I love to just share this because I love my coach. She's like, well, where does love fit into this? And I believe that it fits into every category. I believe it's the foundation. But these are the different aspects or facets of our well-being where love and receiving and nourishment and freedom flow through these different aspects of our well-being. So if one of these areas of your life is out of balance, you're gonna know, because it's gonna hurt and it's not gonna feel good, and you're probably gonna be feeling some scarcity in that area. So I'm not going to dive too much into my own personal story, but I will just share that you don't get to be a teacher of this because things came easily. So what I just want to say is, I guess if I were to kind of create my relationship with money in a nutshell, in my younger years as a child, my father was in the military, so we had everything we needed, so I never really felt scarcity. Scarcity just wasn't something I was born with. It wasn't anything glamorous, but it was always enough, and I was always super grateful. I ended up making a choice to go to a college that was a federal service academy that was paid for by the government, so I had no college loans, which was pretty nice, and I made that decision partially for financial reasons. After I graduated, I had 2 degrees, one which was engineering, and felt like I had really done well. Like, okay, I have a respectable job, and, I was only making 40 grand a year. This was in the year 2000 as an engineer. And anyway, as time went on, I continued to work, and most of you know my story. Had a health crisis, ended up leaving corporate, working for myself, and coaching, which I've been doing for 15 years. And in the last, I guess since 2018, I've been able to create the financial and time freedom that I've always wanted for myself, so that I could spend more time with my family, doing the things I love, which one of them is traveling, supporting my daughter in surfing, and my other daughter who is finishing high school in Hawaii. So that feels really good. There were multiple times throughout that, 20 years where I was actually offered jobs, high-paying jobs. One particular job was an opportunity to make up to like $750,000 a year, and I turned it down because it was just totally out of alignment with my soul. And there was something inside me that just said that I could be paid what I wanted to be for what I love to do, because we were born from abundance, and I've always had an abundant mindset. Now, my abundant mindset actually ended up being a shadow of mine, because I would say to myself, like, I have everything I need. I don't really need anything else. And then finally in 2018, after having about an 8-9 year coaching career and not really making great money, making like maybe $15,000, $20,000 a year and working my butt off as a health coach, I hired my first business coach who use the emotional freedom technique to help me uncover my money story. And so that is when that journey began. And then fast forward a couple of years, what actually triggered or activated, I should say, me into creating my prosperity course, which was interesting because in 2021, in 2020, my word was abundance. I started tapping into this energy of giving and receiving. In 2021, my word was prosperity. This year, my word is sovereignty. But in 2021, it was the hardest financial year of my life. And that happened because of a decision that I had made. You could call it a wrong turn, but I don't really believe that there are really wrong turns. I think that the things that feel challenging and feel like mistakes just give us clarity. But I was working with another woman that ended up she ended up not being the person that I thought she was. It was a lesson in not trusting somebody else more than myself, and ended up just losing a lot of money in that decision that was out of alignment with me. It was a deep sense of betrayal, which was really self-betrayal and not listening to my own intuition and my own gut. And I learned from that, and it all ended up well, except for a huge financial loss, and almost walked away from my coaching business of, I guess at that time it was 11 years, was actually offered a job to coach for another coach, making up to 100 grand a year. And I just thought, no, I've worked too hard. This is what I love to do. Somebody came into my life and took this from me because I trusted them, but now I know my value, and I won't let anybody do that again. So that is where the prosperity course came from. And I was going from, after coaching 11 years, if you can imagine, and having built a 6-figure business, and then having losing it because of a collaboration that didn't go well and was out of alignment, and then paying 10 grand to coach that year, I was able to bring my business back to 6 figures. Why does this matter? Well, it matters because of what I get to invest in. And if you've heard me talk about prosperity before, we get to amplify our voices and values in the world. I get to support other women. I get to sponsor events. I get to invest in other women. I get to hire women to work with me. I get to create amazing events and retreats for women. I get to teach women that they can have this too. I get to help in ways through donations and charity and non-for-profits that I couldn't do before. I can remember in 2018 being in a conference with my business coach at the time, and she was offering an opportunity to donate to a charity called Unstoppable, which supports women in Africa. And one of the things I've always been passionate about is supporting women with prenatal health, specifically in lower socioeconomical areas, because of my own experience, because I had a near-death experience in birth. And I donated what I could at the time. My income at the time, I think that year was like $15,000. So I just figured, okay, like I can do about 5% at this time. And I just remember a woman stood up, and my coach at the time thanked her, and she had donated $10,000. So percentage-wise, she was donating the same that I was, but she was able to give so much more, and I just cried. I just cried my eyes out because I thought, I want to do that. Like, I want to be able to choose the level of support that something that I care so deeply about is getting in the world. And that's when I realized, like, if I'm saying that, I have to decide that I am ready to be in service and to be paid for that so that I can continue to give more opportunities and more into the world. And that's why I think it's so important to talk about money, especially as women. I really believe in the collective right now. There's just so many shifts happening. Like, if we look at how the world's been the past few years, I mean, honestly, we could say that the world is pretty much owned by the patriarch and has been for a long time, and they're getting to decide where all the money goes. Like, most of the top billionaires in the world, maybe except for Oprah or the royal family, like, they're men, most of them. And I'm ready for that to change. And at the same time, I'm ready for it to change in a new way. And this is what I truly believe is happening. Not in the way of my generation and most of the women I've worked with. I'm 45, so if you're in your 40s or 50s, we were raised to think like, or at least the belief I had is we can do everything men can do. We can be the breadwinners and the mothers. And yes, we can. And that's also can feel hard. We can do it, but we want to do it mindfully. We want to do it in a way that creates time freedom. We want to do it in a way where it doesn't feel like we have the weight of the world on our shoulders. I hear so many women say they take care of everything. And you know what? That tells me you have blocks around receiving. How do I know? Because that was me. And I'm telling you, I'm giving you permission. You don't have to do everything. In fact, the less you do and the more you say yes to what is truly aligned, the more happiness and joy and freedom, abundance and prosperity you will have in every area of your life, in your marriage, in your health, in how well you are paid for what you do, in everything. I want to share this with everybody because it's so amazing. And the results that the women that I've been working with over the past couple of years have proved that. The women that I've been working with were getting these results before I was, because what I learned is that I'm not a money coach. It's not about the money. It's about your self-worth and your inner work. It's not about your worth in the way that how worthy you think you are is how much you make. It's about confidence and clarity and owning yourself and sovereignty and alignment and embodied trust. So if you haven't listened to any of my podcasts on prosperity, please go check them out. There are several. There's a prosperity prayer. I think that's episode 85. We'll put the links in the show notes. But there have been a handful, and there are going to be many more coming, because Earlier this year, I launched my prosperity course. And so we are getting ready to launch it for the second time. This year, it will be available this week. We're going to have the Prosperity Roadmap Workshop. We're going to put a special code in the notes for listeners to join at half price. The workshop is normally $97. We're going to put a code in there for you to join, actually for $40. And then we're going to begin on 11/11/22 at 11/11, because I love those numbers, because I was born at 11/22 and my soul contract is 11/2. So with that said, let's talk a little bit about what a prosperity roadmap is. And maybe you'll get enough from this podcast, and if you do, that's super awesome. If you want more, come on to the workshop that's going to be Monday night on the 7th at 7 p.m. Eastern. If you can't come, there will be a recording, but live is really best because you get to be real-time coached. So what we're going to talk about today is the importance of building the foundation for prosperity consciousness through 5-element wealth: mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, and financial. You're going to understand what prosperity consciousness is. You're going to clarify your why. Why do you even want to know? I just shared mine with you. I was at a business conference and a woman donated $10,000 and I felt so much grief and sadness, yet so much possibility all in the same moment. I mean, I was shaking and trembling. I thought, what if I could do that? And why not me? Why not you? Why not? There's no reason that any of us don't have that available to us. I'm going to give you some tips on revealing your money origin story and how to redesign your wealth blueprint and create your legacy blueprint. Because how awesome is that if we can invest in things, if we can invest in properties, if we can already, like my girls are learning the importance that I believe is in working for yourself and owning your own business, which is a huge risk. But I've made so much more income and have had so much more freedom than I ever did when I worked corporate. Now, I do believe that where you are is the vehicle for the next thing. So some people thrive in corporate and that's super great. But I'm talking, maybe you do something on the side or maybe you decide eventually that you want to create your own thing. Being an entrepreneur isn't for everybody. But I tend to attract people with super creative energy that are either making positive changes in their corporate life or they're creating positive changes through creative expressive outlets outside of their work life, which also in turn can create more financial freedom and time freedom. Or every once in a while, a couple of people decide to leave their current work situation and work in a way that they want to create more time and financial freedom. And so far for everybody that I've worked with, it's worked out really, really well. More time freedom working for themselves, doing the same thing and making the same amount, or doubling, tripling, or quadrupling their income, or leaving a current job situation and just getting a better job and just owning their worth and asking to be paid more, because pretty much every woman that I've attracted in my space is awesome and a hard worker. They're not slackers. They're probably usually overworking. So that's part of the conversation too, is where can you work more in alignment rather than working harder. As a bonus today through this podcast, my hope is that you'll begin to understand also how intimacy, love, joy, and creativity and well-being are all connected to your ability to live in prosperity. This is the conversation that nobody's having. This is what I believe. You build from the ground up and it becomes sustainable. And you can't really have one without the other. I've seen people try to make it happen and it just doesn't work. If you're eating crap, you're not loving yourself, and that's part of prosperity. If you're not in a intimate, deep, loving relationship, then it's time to ask yourself, how am I blocking myself from receiving? Maybe you're making really great money, but you haven't called in a partner yet, a soulmate. Maybe you have marriage and money, but you're not taking care of your health. And I believe that they all three need to be aligned in order for true thriving and prosperity, because it's an energy, just like food and money and emotional time and money freedom. Everything is energy. So again, we're going to understand prosperity consciousness, clarify and amplify your why, awaken your personal money origin story, and create some new beliefs and some aligned actions around that. So what is prosperity consciousness? Well, I believe it's an energetic shift in your thoughts, beliefs, and actions through awareness. And if you've heard me talk before, you know I love journaling. And when I have a journaling membership called the 13 Moons of Daily Devotion, where every day we journal, and the prompts that I create activate the reticular activating system, because this allows a mindset shift. It allows a rewiring of our perception and our beliefs. And so prosperity consciousness is literally an energy shift. I just had a new client send me a message that she just agreed to join my North Star Collective last week, and she used these words like, already my beliefs and my energy have instantly changed just since we began talking, because that's contagious, the way that we perceive life. And so you want to surround yourself by people who are having the beliefs and the experiences that you want. And that's part of the RAS, is that we start to shift your belief system and your mindset. And we do this to redesign and align to new empowering beliefs. So we're going to shift scarcity to trust. There's a lot of scarcity consciousness out there, and the opposite of scarcity, because that's fear that there's not enough, is trust and prosperity and abundance. And this includes resonance to your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual well-being through your money behavior. Like, your relationship to money actually is reflected through your relationship to your physical health, emotional well-being, spiritual well-being, and mental well-being. Through your money behavior, your money wellness. Same thing. It's all a relationship. Like, how you value your relationships to everything is reflected through everything. Your money love language. So just like we have a love language with people in our lives, we have a love language with money that is part of my prosperity course. And most importantly, the embodiment and the integration of the awareness and understanding of what this means. The second reason I think I'm most passionate about this is because so many times I have witnessed women use money as an excuse as to why they can't do something. You can't come to a retreat. You can't go on a vacation. You can't invest in yourself. You can't go to yoga classes or the gym. And really what you're saying is it's not aligned with my values at this time. That's really what you're saying. Because if you live in prosperity consciousness, you have a belief that it is all available and it will come. It will be available in order for you to choose, because financial freedom gives us choice. This is why this is important. It gives us choice. You get to buy organic foods. You get to support the organizations with causes that you're aligned with and that you believe in. You get to choose to invest in yourself in ways that you want to. And time and money are the two reasons that people don't give themselves opportunities. So when women come to work with me, because working with me is an investment, what I invite them to do is, instead of thinking of where's the money going to come to pay for this, how can I open up to receiving this amount in order to pay for this? And I have seen crazy, amazing things happen within minutes. One woman's boss, within an hour, I guess, called her and gave her like a work bonus that was equal to the amount that she was investing in my program in. Super awesome, right? Other women have, like I said, doubled, tripled, quadrupled their income in various ways opportunities just by saying yes, because when you say yes to you, God and the universe, they just hand you over everything that you're ready to receive. So this prosperity roadmap, this idea is a strong invitation to open up the sacral chakra, which is where we are as a collective right now, the color orange, which resonates with joy and creativity and prosperity and intimacy, pleasure, abundance. Those are all the qualities of the sacral chakra, which is also the feminine chakra. Prosperity is a very feminine energy. It is not hustling, boss babe, working your butt off to prove yourself, to earn money. It is quite different. It is aligning yourself through clarity and opening up to receive through embodied trust that what you are ready for is already available. Boom. Okay? So rewind that if you need to hear that again, because it's super important. Intimacy, nourishment, joy, creativity, and financial freedom. That's the sacral chakra. These are the qualities of prosperity consciousness. It's about embodied trust. I did a podcast on that episode. The opposite of scarcity is trust. So it's an invitation to the embodiment of trust with vulnerability as your gateway to transformation, where miracles will unfold before you because you're ready to receive and step into the confidence to take aligned action. Aligned action doesn't mean every action, but no action is the worst thing you can do. Imperfect action is better than no action, because action creates and decision create momentum. And even if it's an imperfect action, you gain clarity on what doesn't work. So go check out those episodes of the sabotaging cycles of indecision and procrastination if you're one of those people, because that is just a terrible place to be. You just freeze and you miss out on opportunities because you can't make a decision. It's not a pleasant place to be. It's not good for your health. It's not good for... It's just... Ew, it's such a hard place to be. It's the opposite of embodied trust. So there's two types of consciousness. You may remember my podcast on consumer consciousness or creator consciousness. Prosperity is creator consciousness. There's scarcity consciousness, and there's trust consciousness. Trust is the path to prosperity. So, again, do you remember the 5 elements to wealth? Take a moment, write them down. Body wisdom, or physical, financial freedom, spirituality, emotional empowerment, which I also like to say emotional freedom, and mindset. Living well in the energy of prosperity and abundance means that we are fully resourced. Fully resourced in these 5 areas. And it's an energetic frequency. We are resourced, abundant, creative, and prosperous in all of these areas of our life. Resourced means we receive, and we give from a place of receiving. We give from a place of being full. I like to think of a spring, a water spring that just keeps bubbling up from the earth, right? The earth is full, and it has the ability just to create water from a source. It's resourced. That creates something beautiful. And when you live in this energy, you have more physical energy because you're aligned. You're not exhausted and overwhelmed. You feel more balanced. You experience more joy, more freedom. When you let freedom, emotional time, and financial freedom, because you have more energy, because you're aligned. And the beautiful thing is when you do this, it ignites creative freedom, expression, because your energy isn't bogged down with like the heaviness of resentfulness, bitterness, anger, sadness, overwhelm, exhausted. Those are all things that they can come and, knock on the door, and you can be like, yeah, I see you. No, thank you. Like, there's just no reason to spin in that anymore. I removed the word busy from my vocabulary in 2018 because busy means misaligned. Busy is not the path to prosperity. That's an old paradigm. This is why this is so important for me to share with you. So what are the 5 elements to wealth? Well, the physical aspect is body wisdom. Our physical well-being communicates to us through our body about what is working in life and what is not. And when we're stuck in patterns, we live in a low energy and our pain body. Physical movement and intuitive holistic nutrition are basic forms of self-love and a foundation for creating high vibrational energy in our bodies that allow us more wealth, and wealth, W-E-L-L-T-H, into our lives. So from an energy perspective, high vibrational foods, colors, vegetables, sprouts, raw foods are going to be the best. And, low vibrational foods are going to be white foods and sugars and alcohol and all the things that we know that aren't good for us. So your health matters. It really, really does, because it's an energy. And if we want to be in the energy of giving and receiving, well, we can't have any stagnation in our body. And stagnation's created by emotions and also foods, like creating not enough flow, or if we don't have movement in our lives. The second one is mindset, our mental health and well-being. A positive mindset is a practice that requires the ability to recognize the stories and thoughts that keep us stuck in patterns, and creating mindset shifts into what is possible and what is working. This is where we can shift from scarcity to opportunity, from failure to clarity about what is working and aligning to our values when we make a decision. So healthy boundaries are important. Making decisions from who we are becoming versus who we've been is super important. As a coach, oftentimes in connection or clarity calls, this is something that I see is sometimes people really want to move forward, but they're just stuck in their old stories. And when it's really glamorous, they create false beliefs to keep them safe where they are. So it's just something to recognize, like, what are you choosing differently? What are you giving yourself permission to shift in your life? How are you making decisions based on who you want to be versus who you've been? Because if you're making a decision based on something that didn't work in the past, like somebody hurt you, you're just going to stay there. And I know it's hard, it hurts. Betrayal and rejection and abandonment hurt big time, especially betrayal, especially those of us that have been in narcissistic relationships. So get the support you need to move through that space from a professional therapist if you're still being triggered, but don't stay there. You can move forward. I don't believe in owning and staying there. Get the support you need, but be willing to move forward. Emotional empowerment is the third area of 5-element wealth. It is self-regulation and self-responsibility for our experiences. So we no longer project and blame. We learning healthy emotions is super important. So often people project and blame because their expectations aren't met. And that is not self-responsibility. If you say you're disappointed in something, or even disappointed, or even just betrayed, right? That is giving power to the person who did that to you. Well, yes, they did, but the real feeling underneath is sadness. And one of the tools that we go through in some of my group programs is understanding the emotions wheel by Dr. Gloria Wilcox. So really great understanding there. And also compassionate communication, which is the NVC method, which are 2 really great tools that just help us to communicate what it is that we're feeling and what needs we have. So through emotional empowerment, we begin to recognize our self-sabotaging behaviors and witness how we respond, response-able to life's challenges from our healthy self, not our survivor strategies. So often we if we haven't done any self-work, we can respond from our survivor strategies, which can be very glamorous. I'm not going to go too far into it, but basically, a lot of who we are, we created to adapt to our situations when we were younger. And so one of the ones that I most often see is the extremely independent, overachiever, high-performing woman, because that was me, so I tend to attract a lot of women like that. And just unpacking, like, where did that come from? What needs were not met that invited you into creating this glamorous survivor strategy that probably led you to a really great corporate career, and because you believed that you were valued for what you do, not who you are. And when we work with emotional empowerment, we get to emotional freedom, which is where we release attachment to control the outcomes. So, in other words, we don't put expectations on other people to be met. We take responsibility for our own experiences. We don't blame or project or, just so easily give our power away in those ways. The fourth pillar is spirituality. I believe that we're hardwired for spiritual growth. I believe it's why we're here, to embody our soul. Everything that we're seeking is seeking us because we have within us the resources to live the dream we envision when we embody trust. Spiritual growth is a connection to the divine energy that flows through you as your best self, without the fears, the stories, and the blocks that keep you stuck. So it's allowing God to do work through you and getting out of your own way. Financial freedom, the fifth pillar, the fifth element of wealth and well-being, something I discovered, within the past 5 years, and I'm really love sharing about it. And I know it's uncomfortable for so many people. I resisted sharing this for so many years. I used to judge people like money's not important. And I mean, I get it, but it is. It's an energy. It's a vehicle for change. That's how change happens in the world. I mean, not all change, but some change can happen. If you want more organic foods available, well, it's a supply and a demand thing. If you want a different type of education available to your children, well, everybody's working and exchanging for money. So why this is so important at this time is because we're living in a time collectively with so many resources available to create a life of abundance and financial freedom. And in my world, it's happening everywhere. And it's why I want to invite more people in here, because the more people like me, who think like me, who love like me, who have big hearts like me, and I don't mean me, but I mean just more people who have good hearts and who are being resourced with food and love and financially, are going to create a bigger impact and more change in the world. And that financial freedom gives us choice. It allows us to amplify our values in the world. You want to go support Northeast Florida, you want to go support Rethreaded, or you want to go support some organizations I love, Surf Air Negra, Sisters of the Sea, Unstoppable. You want to go support Safe, like for puppies, and which is where we got our dog. Like, you get to do that. You get to decide what's important to me. I'm going to go support. You want to go support homeless shelters. You want to work in the soup kitchen, or you want to donate more money, especially during the holidays. Like, you get to do that. You get to do that. You get to create events for people. You get to create opportunities for people, which is super awesome. It's when we step into that energy of giving and receiving that we begin to alternate our path for our family and our legacy through generational abundance. So already I can see the mindset shifts and the possibilities, and it's mind-blowing what I'm witnessing. Having grown up in a pretty boxed childhood. I mean, I loved it. I love my parents. I loved my experience, but you can't get any more in the box than the military. Like, I lived on the base. It was medical was free, so that was We didn't do anything integrative or holistic. It's whatever was available. We shopped at the commissary. Like, we went to the same grocery store all the time. We didn't have choice. And already so much for both me and my husband, who grew up with very little, has shifted for our children, more so in the mindset and showing them what's possible. And they see no limits on where they can go to school and what they can do. They have so many ideas. They've been kind of mini entrepreneurs from the very beginning. And it's a beautiful thing to witness. So right now, I want to invite you to write those 5 areas down: body wisdom, your physical health, mental health, emotional empowerment, financial freedom, and spirituality. And on a scale of 1 to 10, rate yourself in the following area of where you are now and where you want to be. So you can see the gap. You can see which one is calling you to create a shift in. And then write these 4 words down: vulnerability, 5 words: intimacy, trust, receiving, and nourishment. And on a scale of 1 to 10, how good are you at vulnerability, intimacy, which are kind of the same, but they might mean different things to you. Trust in yourself, trust in others, trust in God. Receiving support, receiving money, receiving help, receiving guidance, receiving opportunities, receiving compliments, and nourishment. Like, when I was a health coach, I used to talk about, like, you can eat as healthy as you want, but if you're in a state of stress when you eat, your body's not actually absorbing. It's not taking in the nutrients if you're in a constant state of fight or flight. It just doesn't happen. That's leaky gut. I did a podcast on that as well. Can't remember the name of it, but I did a podcast on it. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how good are you at those? That covers the first portion of this prosperity roadmap, which is understanding prosperity consciousness through 5-element wealth. Now we're going to move into amplifying and clarifying your why. Why does this even matter? Why are you even still listening? Why is this important? Why is it important for me to teach? Why are you interested in learning? I want you to list your 5 core values. You should be living, I don't like to use the word should, but these values are what we get to choose to live in alignment with every single day. Maybe they're somewhat related to the 5 elements of well-being. I know they are for me. Emotional empowerment for me is connection. My health is super important. Transformation is important, and growth, which I consider to be the spiritual aspect of it. So, what are your 5 core values? Next, I want to invite you to listen to your skills and your roles. And just be curious about these. Just go ahead and list like 5 skills. It could be playing music. That might be more of a talent. It could be balancing the checkbook or cooking. Cooking could be a skill or a talent. Something that you've been taught. A talent is more something that comes easily to you. So list some skills, list your roles. So for me, it's like business owner, coach, mom, community member, teacher. So just thinking about like what your role is at work, what your role is in your family and your community or amongst your friends, maybe sister, daughter, mother. What top 5 roles show up every day? What are 5 characteristics that describe you? And one thing that you can do is ask 5 of your closest friends. What are 5 characteristics that describe you? And when you ask these 5 friends, I would invite you to notice like which ones do you see that repeat themselves when you're asking? What are your talents and passions? What really excites you? What comes easily to you? Maybe playing music or dancing. Dancing is one of mine. I have taught it before, but it's something that comes easily and that I really enjoy. Windsurfing would be another one of mine, or surfing, just being in the water. So maybe for you it's reading a book or sewing, crocheting, gardening, cooking, working out. What are you passionate about? What are your talents and your passions? Some more of mine include teaching, speaking, although it terrifies me sometimes, but it's why I do this podcast. Usually the things that you resist are the things that you're meant to do if you're really into like growth and expansion. And then I want you to write this question down and write down this answer. If money were no object, what would you do? Most people say travel the world with my family. And I'm going to tell you, I do that. I did it before I even created the financial freedom and time freedom that I have now. I homeschool traveled my kids 6 years ago. I just decided it was a value and I was going to do it. So I did work for myself. If money were no object, what would you do? If you had financial freedom, what would you change in your life? How would you spend it differently? For most people, this actually isn't going to change because earning financial freedom makes you more of who you are. So hopefully you're already putting your money where your values are, your time and your money. A lot of people say they value their health, but they don't eat healthy and they don't work out or they don't invest in a coach. A lot of people say they value growth or learning or transformation, but they don't invest in themselves. A lot of people say they value adventure, but they don't take vacations. So hopefully you're living in alignment and making choices with your time and money where your values are. But if you had financial freedom, what would change in your life? I can tell you right now that nothing changed for me. I was already investing in integrative wellness, what felt like beyond my means before it, because it was a value of mine. It didn't matter. The value of that transformation was priceless. Like to fully be empowered in my health and well-being, there was no price on it. A lot of times women say that to me in the course I take them through, is that you can't put a price on it because so much changes in that time period that you can't put a price on transformation. So how would you spend it differently? I can tell you that when I made $15,000 a year to having a 6-figure business, I travel, I invest in the same things, either when financial income felt strapped, maybe I did my own yoga practice at home versus going to yoga, or things definitely shift. I probably didn't travel as much as I do now. Listen to the podcast. Are you a conscious or creator or consumer, meaning conscious investor or unconscious spender? Because a lot of what people are spending their money on is not important. I had a woman recently from Hawaii ask me, how do you explain abundance and scarcity in a place where on an island, which I just experienced because I just came back from Hawaii, there's scarcity. And in my mind, there's so much abundance. You go to the farmer's market, everything you need is there. The island is abundant. There's water, everything grows. But you go to the store and on the shelves, there's scarcity. But that's not stuff you need. It's stuff you want. So it's just a shift in the mindset. Next question is, if you had abundance of wealth, how would you give back? I think this is super important. I think that if you want to have a healthy relationship money, you need to get clear on why this matters and how you're going to give back. Either through support of other women, which I love to do. I love to pay sometimes even former clients to come work with me. And I love to pay them well, more than they've experienced before, because I shows them that I see the value in them. If you had an abundance of wealth, how would you give back? I love to sponsor events that I'm super passionate about. I just recently sponsored Sisters of the Sea surfing events, which supports breast cancer. With a mother-daughter workshop valued at $2,500, I love to sponsor Surf Air Negra. I love to give to so many different organizations that I just cannot, I don't choose to give my time to, but organizations that help pets and homeless shelters and women. Those are some of my favorites. And the last question is, why is this important to you? And I'm guessing if you're listening still, because you're like me, you love, and you love to be loved, and you want to give back, and you want to help create change in the world. So now we're going to shift into a little bit more into identifying your money origin story. And we're just going to do a quick couple points because I'm going to go deeper into this next week on a podcast. And I'm just going to go through a couple of the money blocks. Now, there are probably 10 to 20 different lines that I hear people say within each area of money blocks, but I'm just going to go through the major 6 areas that I see. The first one is hard work equals success. That was mine. The second one is money's not spiritual. I've had a couple of clients feel that one. The third one is money is evil. Maybe you have experienced somebody who did have money do something evil. I've even experienced that. I've seen greed and was hurt by it through betrayal. And I do believe that money makes us more of who we are. So when you're in prosperity consciousness, you're aligned and clear, and you won't attract those people anymore. And, maybe we look at the world and we see large corporations and organizations that are not contributing to the health and the best thing for the planet. So maybe that's coming through for you. Maybe you have certain beliefs. The fourth one is beliefs you have about wealthy people. Like I just shared some, maybe you feel they're greedy or selfish. The fifth one is believing in scarcity, failure, and debt. So having shame or guilt around debt in the past, if that's happened. Feeling like you're a failure if you've, had to put things on interest, or you couldn't pay off your college tuition, or you had to do 0% interest credit cards, you couldn't pay something off, or you've maybe even been in bankruptcy, or you have scarcity. The thing I've seen with scarcity is I'm, as a coach, and helping people move through these blocks, because money blocks are just an invitation to all other kinds of blocks and self-sabotaging behaviors. It's just one way that we learn about ourselves. But one thing that I see is that people have invested in my program, whether it's been, let me just do the math real quick, but 20% of their income or 2% of their income, and it didn't matter. They either had scarcity beliefs or they stepped into trust. It didn't matter what their income was. You either have scarcity beliefs or you trust. And the last block, money block, is just your own belief and value system. So maybe you were raised to think that, that wanting money is wrong. And I had a little bit of that too. So when we go through the money origin story, we get clear on what our beliefs were that we heard growing up, recalling a time of scarcity and abundance, and just really navigating around that. When we do that, we shift into redesigning our relationship to money, which I will go in further in another podcast episode, but we start to get clear on what's sabotaging our behaviors. What's sabotaging behaviors that we have that we notice around our health, around love and intimacy, and around money, because they're very closely connected. And then we get clear on what are some of those old beliefs based on those blocks that we notice, that we learned from mom and dad or our first job or a boss or something, and we journal around those money beliefs. I would invite you to just think of what are some money beliefs that you currently have, and how can I reframe that, and think about thinking in the way of who you're becoming versus who you've been. So the old money beliefs are what you've been taught or conditioned to believe. And what do you want to believe? And how can you reframe that into what you want to believe? And write it in a way through the reticular activating system of, I wonder what it'll feel like when I receive an abundance of income, financial freedom, time freedom, or support, or a soulmate, or my health improves, any of those areas, because they are all abundance and prosperity. And then asking yourself, like, what are you excited and ready for? Because that means that you're open to receiving. And aligning to the frequency of wealth is taking aligned action. So when an opportunity comes up, because I like to say, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. The teacher doesn't always have to be a person. It can be an opportunity. Sometimes it can be a health crisis. Sometimes those are the ones that hurt. I've had that one. Sometimes it's betrayal. I've had that one too. Sometimes it's a wonderful thing. Sometimes when we align more to the frequency of wealth, they tend to hurt a little less. That's kind of how we know, but sometimes we don't see the benefit of our decision that we believe is a mistake until like a year later. Sometimes it just takes time to see the gift in what we felt was a wrong decision. I want to share with you as we close this episode. There's so many things I could share. Quotes around prosperity. Every spiritual teacher talks about prosperity. It's in the Bible, the Buddha. They've all talked about abundance and prosperity. Wayne Dyer says, if you want to experience prosperity at a miraculous level, you must leave behind your old ways of thinking and develop a new way of imagining what is possible for you to experience in your life. And then one that I love from Gandhi is, your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits become your values, and your values become your destiny. I think that's so powerful. And I've seen it happen over and over and over again, especially with the words, because that's where we actually put something out there. And so if we find that we're saying something that we don't want to believe, we get to reshift that. And I've done it several times. Like, hold on, that's not actually what I think. Let me rephrase that. So thank you so much for joining me. I want to invite you, as we close this podcast, to come full circle with the 5 areas of wealth and well-being, which I like to put together as WELLTH. And whichever the biggest gap was between where you are and where you want to be, take that one first and create an aligned action. So aligned action is not a goal, it's an intention. So if you know the biggest gap is in your physical health, set an intention to drink more water, eat more vegetables, exercise 3 times a week. If you know that it is around emotional empowerment, that could be love. Maybe you have a conversation with somebody that you've been putting off. If you know it's around financial freedom, get clear on your money blocks. I want to invite you to join me for a Prosperity Roadmap workshop. We're going to dive deeper into this Monday, November 7th. Again, we're going to put a special link for the listeners to join at a savings for the workshop. And also, we'll put a discount offering just for listeners, because I'm so grateful for you, to join the Prosperity course that's going to begin the 2nd week in November. It's the 2nd time we've done it this year. You can join us if you decide you like the Prosperity Roadmap workshop. You can join us on November 11th as we begin. And if you join, but you're like, I don't really want to do this through the holidays, you can join at this lower price for 2022 and decide that you want to join the actual course in January. I have 3 people that have already done that. They will be traveling. They're not sure that the time works, but they want to take advantage of the lower price offering in 2022. So lots of options, abundant in options, all for you, available to support you, to welcome you into this energy, into this group, to learn, to open, to receive, to prosper, to share. And of course, we'd love to have you. I'd love to hear what your takeaways are from this episode, and what you learned, what you want to learn more of, or if you have any questions at all, let me know. Thank you so much for joining. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Aloha. The content of this podcast is to educate, inspire, and inform you of pathways to an embodied healing self. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice from your medical doctor, therapist, registered dietitian, or nutritionist for any questions you may have regarding your diagnosis or condition. Hello, friends, and thank you so much for joining again each week on the Body and Soul Wisdom Podcast, formerly the Embodied Healing Self Podcast. I am so deeply honored to share this space with you every week. I know that there are many other podcasts that you could be tuning into, and our community is expanding and growing more with each new episode. I'd like to invite you to come on over to jenmons.com/tribe and receive some of the wonderful gifts that we have for you. A meditation bundle, energetic alignment, 5-element wealth, prosperity consciousness. We have a ton of different gifts available for you to enjoy. Now, we have one small favor to ask. In order for this podcast to get into the hearts and souls of like and light-minded people, we need your support. We would love your review and would love it if you'd head on over to jenmons.com/podcast to leave a review or leave one on iTunes so that we can continue to share the love beyond out into the world. Thank you so much again for joining in. We'll see you next week.